Let's get back to for loops. I'm going to finish up for loops again. Now there are lots and lots of features of for loops. We're just kind of touching on them briefly in the two videos that we're doing on them. Let's review a little bit. For loops has three parts. It has an initialization. It's usually setting some type of counter to an initial value. There is the test. Count is less than 100. And then there is the increment. Okay, so three parts of it. Now you'll also notice too that the semicolons in between the statements. These are actually C++ statements inside of here. I misspelled that one. Let me count. All right, so very good. These are C++ statements. Any C++ assignment statement can go in here. Any Boolean expression can go in there, or anything that returns a Boolean expression. And then any C++ statement can go right here too. So three statements. The first two have semicolons on them, and you notice the last one doesn't. Okay, so let's do this. Cout, hello world, kind of trivial. \n. Okay. Now, what's going to happen here? Well, let's make this just 10. It's going to print it out 10 times. It's going to start with 0 and go to 9, and just before it hits 10, it's going to stop it. Less than 10. So while this is true, it's going to continue to print out this hello world. Let's build it. Build solution. Build it just fine. We're going to run it, and run it 10 times. Common pitfall. Let me do this. I'm going to put a semicolon right here. Alright, now you'll notice I'm going to save it. Everything turned green. There are no errors in there. How many times is it going to print out hello world? Well, you think it's going to print it out 10 times. In actuality, it's only going to print it out once. Let me prove that to you. Let me build it. Let me start without debugging. Hello world was only printed out one time. Why? Well, what happened was the semicolon right here ended the for loop. Remember, there were no brackets around it to tell us where to encompass the entire loop at. It's just going to do the first statement after the for loop. Well, that's a null statement. That's a valid C++ statement right there, and that's what it's going to do. It's going to do nothing 10 times. So that's a very, very common problem, is to put that semicolon right there. Alright, now let's go ahead and do this. Let's print out, let's put in our IO manip. We're going to get used to using that in our programs. IO manip. And we're going to go out and we're going to say left, set width of 5, and we're going to print out count along with that, so we know how many times things are going to print out. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to print out first of all count. Let's go ahead and do that. This says it doesn't like this. We're going to take this statement out. Alright, very good. Indent that a little bit. So let's build this. Let's just make sure this works is all we're doing right now. We're going to do it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very good. Prints it out 10 times. Now I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do a nested do loop. Okay. So I'm going to change this to, I'm going to change this name right here. I'm going to change this to outer. Just so we can, a frame of reference. Okay. Why change the name? Well, again, I'm going to do something just a little different here, and I want you to be able to see what's going on by naming them inner and outer. Alright, now I'm going to put in another for loop. I'm going to say for int, and I guess I'm going to say inner equals 0. Inner is less than 10, and then inner plus plus. And now I'm going to print out inner and outer. So outer inner. Okay. So what's going to happen? Well, I've got a for loop with inside a for loop. And what's going to happen is it's going to start off with this for loop. It'll do this one first, and it will set outer to 0. And then it's going to come into this inner loop, and it's going to perform it 10 times. It'll do inner 0 through 9, printing out into program. It'll go back up, and it'll set outer to 1, and then it'll do this one side 10 times again. So the inside one is done 10 times for every one time the outside is done. You're going to see that because you're going to see the counters being printed out. Inner is going to be printed, outer is going to be printed out first, and I'll just go ahead and put this out. Outer is, and then we'll go in here and we will say inner, spell it right, is alright, let's build it. We'll start without debugging, and you'll see, look at here. See, now I want to show you. See, inner is 0, and outer is 0, and inner goes 0 through 9, and then outer is 1, inner is 0 through 9. Let me make that a little bit better. Alright. See that? 1, 2, 3. At the outer goes first, all 10. The outer is set to one number, the inside goes all 10 times. Then the outer goes another number, then the inner is 10 times. This will go 100 times. How do we know? Well, it's the number of times this will run times the number of times this will run. It's 100 times. Those are nested loops. And again, you can make the same kind of mistakes here that you can make in other loops. I can put a semicolon right here, and then it won't be an inner loop anymore. It'll run 10 times, outer will go 10 times, nothing will be printed out, and then the inner will be run 10 times, which that will be printed out. But you'll also notice too that outer is no longer known because it's outside the scope of that for loop. So those are nested loops. They're a little tricky, but they're worth practicing because we're going to use them later on, and they're used a lot in sorting and searching, and in matrix multiplication, and or two-dimensional arrays. Play this over again. Good exercise. Try it a few times, and on to the next subject.